What's up guys, and welcome to round number 1 of the AOR F1 Season 15 Championship, here today for the Xbox Split 1 Australian Grand Prix. We're starting a new season, and I am your new commentator for the highlights this season. My name is Joe, and if you didn't check out the driver introduction, I recommend you to do so because we've got quite a lot of new drivers in Split 1 this season. But it is, of course, the Flying Finn, who is the defending champion and the 3-time defending champion, and goes into this season looking for his 4th consecutive championship. Before we get into the action for today, we're going to take a quick look at the Season 14 podium. And it was actually Veloce, also known as TRL Limitless, who took the win last year. He is absent from today's race, but will be competing in this season. And it was the Flying Finn and STS F1 Alonso that made up the rest of the podium. Of course, the two brothers that are in the Mercedes car this year. And it was the Flying Finn who took pole with a 121.0 last year. The Melbourne circuit is an interesting one on this game, and it should provide plenty of excitement, well, plenty more than the real-life Grand Prix. And without further ado, let's get in now to qualifying. So for the first qualifying comparison of Season 15, we have the Flying Finn in the Mercedes on the left against NLR Evo on the right in the Ferrari. Both of them brake around the 100 meter board into turn 1 before straightening the car up through turn 2 and straight back on to the DRS. Both, interestingly, hold it in 7th gear before shifting down into 3rd, being careful not to lock the inside front into turn 3. Up into 4th gear for turn 4, and so far in this first sector, it's almost like watching two carbon copies of a lap. Almost nothing to separate them, but Finn with the very slight advantage at the end of the first sector. He gets a slightly better turning than Evo through turn 7 and 8 and starts to extend his advantage up this mini straight into the turn 9, 10, right, left. And once again, the Finn just looking as if he's got a little bit more confidence than Evo in this first half of the lap. And now they go on one of the next longest straights on the track to the turn 11, 12 chicane. And as you can see, a little bit more of a substantial advantage for Finn at the end of the second sector. But he just loses the car on the exit of 11 and 12, which allows Evo to catch back up and shows how easily a small mistake can be punished. Now going through turn 13 and into 14, both holding it in 6th gear. One of the best corners when you get it right on this track. Down into 3rd gear now, trying not to take too much of the inside curb or else you will lose grip. And now up into 5th gear, onto the DRS before the run to the line. And well, there is just 12 1,000ths of a second separating the two drivers, but it will be Finn that lines up on pole. So the grid for the opening round of Season 15 sees the Flying Finn just ahead of NLR Evo, the two drivers that we saw in the qualifying report. And as I just said, just 12 1,000ths of a second separating the two. And Finn's teammate and brother STS F1 Alonso was just a further 300ths behind, and he'll line up in 3rd ahead of TOR Leopard, who put in a good performance for the Williams team. Sitting in 5th is Danny M7, who'll line up alongside Surprise, with P1R Brown lining up in 7th for Force India ahead of Kyle Mitchell in the first of the Renaults. EVR Morso and VSR Simon round out the top 10, and now getting into the second half of the order we have Gouch, who is the reserve for this league and has been called up for this race. He put in a good performance in 11th place ahead of Drawmaster in the 2nd McLaren. CRL Rosberg will line up 13th for the Toro Rosso team and is the first of the drivers that is over a second outside of the pole time. Pretty impressive, it has to be said, that the top 12 have managed to do so, with Sam F1 LFC on his debut in Split 1 lining up 14th. OMG, it's Joe, will start 15th ahead of debutant Pinecode, and his teammate LGS will start in 17th and was the last of the drivers to set a time. Cryo Lockdown, EVR Reynolds and CRL Hamilton didn't set times, meaning they'll start from the back of the grid. Without further ado now, let's get into the race. So the scene was all set for Season 15 to get underway, and it was the Flying Finn that led the pack away from NLR Evo, with Evo actually managing to get a very good start and actually challenged Finn going into turn 1, momentarily going into the lead before being pushed out. They made a little bit of contact and Alonso needed no more invitation than to get ahead of the Ferrari driver. That made it a Mercedes 1-2 very early on, and with Evo trying to go down the inside of Alonso at this early stage, it wasn't a risk worth taking, and he sat in at 2P3. And in fact, the front three already managing to make a little bit of a gap on the rest of the field. TOR Leopard maintained his very good qualifying position in P4, and Danny M7 as well, sitting in P5. Very good for him. Now going back on board with NLR Evo, you can see that he actually got a complete tank slapper on the exit of turns 9 and 10, which allowed the front two to get away and actually put himself under pressure from TOR Leopard, who momentarily got ahead, but as they went through the 11-12 chicane, Evo just about managed to maintain position. Taking a look at the replay then of the start from the Flying Finn, he got a little bit bogged down at the start, in fact, not getting too many revs, maybe in fact not enough. And there you can see Evo tries to go down the outside, down the inside of him, but Finn keeps his line and does very well to keep his composure, because it is very, very easy to get flustered going into turn 1, but well, we expect nothing less of the 3-time champion at this stage. Now looking at someone who's slightly further back in the grid, CRL Rosberg, to see what the perspective was like from further back. And he actually managed to get a pretty good start, already getting past Drawmaster and then Gouch into turn 1, already up into P11. But it looks to me as if everyone got through there cleanly, and as he went through to turn 3, a notorious location for pileups usually, it looks as if the mid-pack managed to get through there successfully, with Kyle Mitchell getting past more so at this early stage of the race. Going back on board now with the Flying Finn at the end of lap 1, and his brother and teammate Alonso trying to go down the inside of him through turns 13 and 14. Not a notorious overtaking place, but Alonso manages to make it stick and is now ahead of his teammate and into the lead of this race. He started the lap in P3, has ended it in the lead, and what a start it is for the younger Saltunch brother, who of course sets the fastest lap along the way as well. On to lap 3 now, and it's evident already that those top 3 really do have the pace to get away from everybody else, with TOR Leopard following them relatively closely in 4th place. On to lap 4 now, and going on board with Drawmaster, who's fallen a couple of positions from his starting place and is now almost going side by side with Gouch Crab, who tries to go down the inside and pushes Drawmaster out wide, who then proceeds to lose positions to Lockdown and Pineco, meaning he's already down in 17th place. And going into this 9-10 chicane now, Pineco almost collides with Lockdown, and Drawmaster then loses speed, collides with Reynolds, and surely, as you can see, with that front wing, his race has been completely compromised at an early stage. OMG, it's Joe and CRL Rosberg are the highest of the soft runners at this moment in time, sitting in P9 and P10. Joe trying to look for an overtake down the inside. No, he is just too far back at the moment, but these two are definitely ones to watch soon. Lap 7 now, and there's been not really much activity going on up front, apart from the fact that they're just following each other so closely. But, of course, there's more than 20 laps to go in the race at the moment, meaning there's plenty of time to pick a move. And knowing these three, they're not going to take any more risk than they need to. But now, coming into the pits are Alonso and Evo, which will surely trigger the rest of the pack to come in. But Finn is surely going to be wanting to put in a cracking outlap, and he just tries to push it too hard there. You can see getting a massive snap off oversteer, and this is really going to see where he comes out and whether that undercut has in fact worked. There is his teammate Alonso, who just about comes out ahead of him, but as a result of coming out in traffic, Evo doesn't manage to jump Finn in the pits, and I think Finn may have slightly got away with one there. But, well, that's the risk that you take. If you come in early, you expect to come out in traffic. So Finn didn't have any option and ends up just behind his brother and teammate. And they are currently trying to navigate their way through the pack on lap 10. All of these drivers yet to pit. So Alonso still in the net lead of the race as he tries to go down the inside. But the lag comes at a very unfortunate moment, and he actually ends up once again behind Pinecone. Pinecone's debut in the league sees him behind two veterans and two of the quickest drivers on this game. But he manages to put up a good fight for a couple of laps before Alonso and Finn do manage to navigate their ways round them, and they're still in an effective 1 and 2. Next up, on lap 13, we see our first retirement from the race, which is EVR Reynolds. He'll be disappointed about that. Danny M7 and TOR Leopard now, and you can see that Danny managed to get ahead of Leopard in the pit stops and has maintained that advantage for the next few laps. So this could be a big battle come the end of the race for 4th. But yeah, definitely keep your eyes on this because it looks like those are going to be the final pit stops of the race. Just 13 laps left to go in the Grand Prix now, and as Alonso comes around the final corner, those front three still haven't pitted, and Sam F1 LFC is the first of them to be navigated. And if anything like previous laps are to be believed, I'd imagine that Finn and Evo will follow him through. But it looks as if there, Alonso's just managed to pull a little bit of a gap on Finn, and Evo then almost thinks of a move down the inside of the 3-time champion, but thinks better of it. Shortly after Kyle Mitchell's retirement, VSR Simon is also out of the race, and it looks like he's just sitting in neutral on the pit straight, but once again, a disappointment for him. Sam F1 now has pitted and is down in P15, but he's making up ground, and that is an easy position as Pinecone goes spinning in his debut, but I believe he's yet to pit in 15th. End of lap 19 now, and Rosberg and Joe are the two leaders, but of course not the net leaders. So they finally come into the pits for their one and only stop of the afternoon, and it'll be interesting to see where exactly they come out. It looks as if it's going to be in 10th and 11th place, with slower drivers ahead of them. Could be an interesting few laps. Lap 20, and this battle for the lead is starting to hot up. Just half a second separating the top three currently. And it looks as if Finn is going to try and go around the outside of Alonso, but he does think better of it and sticks behind for the meantime. But there are plenty of overtaking opportunities, as Alonso proved on lap 1 around this racetrack, or at least on this game anyway, if not in real life. But now coming to the end of the first sector, it looks as if he's just going to stick behind. And he's got to be cautious as well not to lose a position to Evo. Lap 21 now on board with CRL Rosberg, who of course pitted on lap 19, and Hamilton goes off the racetrack with Rosberg taking the advantage there. Lap 22, and still not close enough to Alonso by the looks of it, at least into turn 1. How about turn 3? No, they are still looking as if there's no way past for Finn. And yeah, once again towards the end of the lap, another opportunity goes begging for him. And Evo, he's just waiting there for an overtake, I'm sure. Staying on lap 22, but this time on board with CRL Rosberg, who tries to go round the outside of Cryo Lockdown for P8, the second overtake in as many laps for him. On board with Joe now, after his pit stop, he's quite a way behind Rosberg and tries to follow him through, goes down the inside of Lockdown, but doesn't manage to succeed. Lockdown, I'm sure, won't be happy about that, because he's lost a substantial amount of time, and it actually looks as if that Hamilton is very close to him now, possibly going side by side through this turn 7 and 8, but it looks as if Lockdown does manage to hold the position, but still, I'm sure he is raging under that helmet. CRL Rosberg is still on the charge, and this time going after the P7 of EVR Morso. They're almost side by side into turn 3. Morso pretty much covers off Rosberg, and he tries to go down the inside there, but he will get another opportunity, this time at the start of lap 26. And Rosberg surely here has got the inside line, brakes a lot later, and up into P7. Now on to Joe's teammate Danny M7, who is now sitting behind TOR Leopard, but trying now to get his way past him and back up into P4. He doesn't quite manage to do so into turn 3, but there's still 3 laps for him to try and craft a way past. And yes, you guessed it, there is still a battle for the lead going on lap 26. There is, well, pretty much nothing to separate them, and now Finn tries to go down the inside at the end of lap 26, and surely Evo will be looking to pounce, and indeed he is. He's right there, ready to pick up any pieces, and if they do collide with each other, it should be a win for Evo, who is renowned in AOR for just sticking back and, well, not going for the move until he really does have to. But now going on to lap 27, further on into the lap, you can see Finn trying to set himself up for an overtake, gets a wonderful line through there, and tries to go around the outside of turn 8. And now we are into 9 and 10, but it looks as if Alonso has just about got that covered. Wow. This is it then, the final lap of this 29-lap race, and it is Alonso from Finn and Evo. It looks as if Leopard will get that P4 as well, as Danny M7 is over half a second behind, but now going into this turn 3, almost going for the switchback move there, is Finn, and it looks as if it's managed to come off. Going now into turn 4, he goes round the outside ahead of his teammate, and Evo just couldn't manage to get past Alonso as well, but the flying Finn, the wily old fox that he is, gets ahead on the final lap of this Grand Prix. He may have had pole position, but Alonso has led every lap of this race, and it looks as if he's just going to slip from his grasp right at the death. I'm sure he will try and have a go, maybe into turn 13 like he did on lap 1, and he's just sitting behind for the moment to see what he can do. Of course, this isn't really an overtaking opportunity, a very high speed turn in 11 and 12, but this is probably going to be his final chance apart from that penultimate corner, and Finn going to the inside, very defensive. If Alonso could stick it around the outside of there, that would have been possibly the move of the season at this early stage. But now, surely he's going to try and go around the outside, because Finn has once again blocked that inside line. And as they go into the final corner, surely Finn has the grip going through there. Yes, Alonso just can't get through. And the flying Finn takes victory in the first race of the season. What a race it was, with Alonso and Evo second and third. Evo just not being able to match the pace of the other two. But there we go. It is the flying Finn who, as I said, has taken victory on this first Grand Prix weekend of the season. So it was a 1-2 for the Saltunch brothers and a 1-2 for Mercedes. It's almost like watching the real life F1 2017 season. But wow, what a race that was. So the results are as follows. The front three separated by less than a quarter of a second. It was the flying Finn ahead of STS F1 Alonso, with NLR Evo in third, as we've already seen. And then 10 seconds further back was TOR Leopard, who, after, well, competing in F3 last season, has come into F1 and absolutely bossed it in P4, with Surprise in P5. And Danny M7 actually accumulating a couple of, one extra penalty compared to the two in front of him, meaning he was only in 6th place, but still a very good drive from him. And Cyril Rosberg in 7th. It looks as if the strategy did in fact pay off for him, going the 19 laps on those soft tyres. And yeah, EVR Morso in P8 for McLaren, the Northern Irishman, ahead of P1R Brown and his F1 debut, finishing in 9th, and Sam F1 LFC getting a nice point for himself in 10th. Cryo Lockdown finished in 11th as a result of accumulating 12 seconds worth of penalties, with Gouch there in P12. OMG It's Joe finished in 13th place, again accumulating 12 seconds of penalties. And Drawmaster did manage to recover to P14 despite losing his front wing quite early on in the race. Cyril Hamilton there in 15th, who actually accumulated the most penalties of anyone over the course of the day. And LGS there in 16th ahead of his teammate Pinecone, both coming home over a minute off the lead. VSL Simon, EVR Reynolds and Kyle Mitchell did not finish the race, but wow, what a race it was, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. But yeah, before we go, we are just going to take a quick look at the standings, which are, as you probably guessed, exactly the same as the race classification. So yeah, the Flying Finn ahead of Alonso at the moment. You can pause it if you do want it, but I don't think it really takes a genius to work out who's winning. And onto the constructors' standings, it is Mercedes at the top after that 1-2, ahead of Toro Rosso, Ferrari and Williams, all of which are in double figures at this early stage. But a massive thank you to you guys for tuning in, also to Hype Energy and Elgato for sponsoring the AOR League this season. Hopefully you guys will join me next week for another race, but until then guys, do take care. I'll see you then. Bye bye.